So, Srimad Bhagavatam 10:80-15. Satan adaya vipragriya prayayau dwarakayam kila Krishna sandarshanam mahyam katham syad iti chintayan. Satan adaya vipragriya. So, vipragriya is the best of the Brahmanas. Adaya is accepting that. Prayayau. Prayan is to go. Prayayau dwarkayam kila. He set off for Dwarka, certainly. Krishna sandarshanam mahyam. He was thinking, how will I be able to have darshan of Krishna? Katham syaditi chintayan. Now, generally, whenever we are traveling, if we consider, there are very many multiple steps that we think about. One of them could be that we think of, okay, what all do I need to carry with me? Think of our luggage, what we need for the journey. We think of some gifts that we want to give. We think of the meeting. So now, whatever the meeting, the purpose while we are going there. So now he's got a gift. There's no mention of any luggage. He's traveling light, practically with nothing. That's how pilgrims would travel in the past. And for him, this was like a pilgrimage. The culture was such that it would be not very difficult to get some food along the way. Now, as far as the meeting is concerned, now he's thinking, how will that happen? So what is the reason he's thinking about why, how will that happen? It's interesting, the way he traveled was on foot. So if you look at the mode of traveling, the kings would travel by horses or chariots. But for common people, the mode of traveling was on foot. So generally for royalty, now in Vrindavan it's described that they had bullock carts on which the ladies would sit. When they moved, for example, from one place in Vrindavan to another, by Vrindavan we refer to the larger area of Vrindavan, when they moved. The Vrajavasis were naturally cowherd people, so when they moved from Gokul to what is technically called as Vrindavan, within the broader Vrindavan area, and they followed that particular principle. Now after this happened, what was the next thing? The different modes of transformation. For him, he went by foot. Sudama. Trinigulmanya atiyaya tisra kakshascha swadijah vipro agamyandhak vrishninam gruheshva achyuta dharminam gruhyam dvasta sahasranam gruham vyas ashta sahasranam mahishinam harer dvijah viveshaikatamam shrimad brahmanandam gato yatha. So now the imposing arrangements for entering into Dwarka are described. So there is very little description of his journey as such. Any kind of movie or any novel, any outlining of a story, you focus on the key incidents within that. So here the key incident is that his journey is not important, his arrival in Dwarka is important. His departure is important because he had some gift with him. So now whenever any story is told, What is the purpose of the story telling? The purpose determines the emphasis. So, when we are going to tell a story, sometimes some people they tell story for entertainment, and that is fair enough. Sometimes stories are for entertainment. Sometimes stories are told for some purpose of explaining, communicating something. So, here the purpose is to talk about devotion, about bhakti, about to talk about both the bhakta and the Bhagavan. So, from that perspective, if we consider if that is the purpose of the story, then accordingly, the moments, the times where the devotion is going to be emphasized, his departure shows his pious and devoted heart on life, where while his wife wants him to go for getting some material needs, he wants to go to have darshan of Krishna. And that's why even in his previous verse the emphasis was, how will I have darshan of Krishna, not how will I get some charity from Krishna. And now in the arrival, what is described is the improbability, the challenges in meeting Krishna, that the status, the difference of stature between the two is so huge. So that is what is being highlighted. Now, what is the difference in stature that's described here? That there were multiple contingents of guards, 3 contingents of guards, Trini Gulman Atiya, he crossed them. Tisra Kakshas Sodija. And then there were 3 sets of gates, and he crossed them also. And then he was accompanied by some other Brahmanas also were going inside. So it's interesting, this detail about other Brahmana that is described. So Brahmanas being welcomed and respected was not unusual. Krishna respected Brahmanical culture as a king. But the personal attention that Sudama will get, that is definitely highly unusual. Vipro agamya andhaka vrishninam. So, if it had not been with the permission of the guards, this was impenetrable. In fact, one of the reasons why Krishna had made this whole thing was to have an impenetrable arrangement. So it was normally impenetrable. Now the impenetrable became penetrable because he was a Brahmana and he had joined other Brahmanas who were going inside. But penetrable, if we know that the history, Krishna had moved from Mathura to Dwarka, so that he would have an impenetrable place for his relatives from the various attacks. Gruheshva Achyuta Dharminam. He entered into the residential area of the Achyuta Dharminam, for those who were devoted to Achyuta. Gruham Dvashta Sahasranam. Gruhesh. So Dvashta Sahasranam. From there, so if we consider from the defensive walls, there were 3 defensive walls from which he came in, and then there were many palaces of the Vrishnis, and then of the royalty, or royal dynasty we can say. But then beyond that, or broadly we could say they could be said to be the aristocracy. They were not the kings exactly, but they were a supporters of the king, so we can use the word aristocracy for them. And after passing all these palaces, now he's come to even bigger palaces, which were of the Mahishis, the queens. So how many queens are there? Dvashta Sahasranam, 16,000 queens. Hare Vivek, Shaikatamam Srimad. When he entered into this area, Brahmanandam Gato Yatha. Now, as he was entering, moving forward, experience was for him like Brahmananda. Now we may say, why not Bhaktyananda? Why Brahmananda? So, this radical differentiation between Brahman and Bhakti or Bhagavan, that is often emphasized in the later Bhakti tradition. That is not necessarily there in the scripture. The word Brahman is a generic reference to spirituality, to spiritual reality, spiritual experience. So, in general, within the Bhakti tradition and specifically within the Gaudiya tradition, Brahman becomes a reference to the impersonal effulgence. So, that is not the specific reference with which specific meaning of the word Brahman whenever it comes. Brahman in the Vedic literature, even in the Bhagavatam, in the Puranas, Itihasas, and the Bhagavatam in general, we see it is a generic reference to spiritual reality. Generic, what is it? The ultimate spiritual reality. Or spiritual reality. Aham Brahmasmi refers to not that I am the Brahma Jyoti, but I am a spark of spirit. Or Athato Brahma Jigyasa doesn't refer to inquire about Brahma Jyoti. It refers to that know what is the and inquire about spiritual reality. So with this, now that he has entered in, he's already feeling great happiness. So he's come closer and closer to his destination of remembering the Lord, of meeting with the Lord whom he has been remembering continuously for so long.